What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and back with some more J-drama score, and we're going to listen to another tune from the excellent soundtrack to the perhaps underappreciated show Undercover Agent Tokage, starring Matsuda Shota, or often referred to in like Western form as Shota Matsuda, who plays Nishikado Sojiroh, one of the F4 in Hana Yori Dango. And yes, I've talked about it in I think 3 previous reactions, though I think they're all a little ways back now. But this is a really cool show, definitely one shot on a smaller budget than a show like Hana Yori Dango, where everything is opulent and, crazy cinematography and clearly, no budget spared when it comes to the soundtrack in the show, because there's songs from, like Madonna and Cyndi Lauper and others where it probably was pretty expensive to get the licensing. But yes, Undercover Agent Tokage is a smaller show, but it's really compelling. It's a detective show and not a police detective show, although they do work with the police. But the main character, Tokage, which means lizard in Japanese, he is played by Matsuda Shota, and he's a private investigator who, like Sherlock Holmes, helps out the police, but is also an enigmatic character. There's a main female character who's maybe actually the main character of the show, at least like we spend the most time with her, I would say. In any case, it's really compelling. It's a detective show. There's a hint of romance, though that's not really the main storyline, or at least it's always sort of supplemental to the case and to the case of the individual episode. I haven't done a watch along for it yet, but I certainly will at some point on my Patreon, so we'll look forward to that. But we're going to listen to a tune called Missing, which, it's a show that I've only seen maybe twice and not for a while. It's originally from 2013, so I probably watched it first not too long after that, and then again I think a few years later, but probably not for several years now, so it'll be fun to go through it on my Patreon. But yes, I think this is a track that plays in more serious, dramatic moments, maybe indeed when someone is missing. But of course, I say that it's about the case to case. Over the course of the show, we learn more and more about Tokage's backstory, and in particular his relationship with his father, who I think was killed in the line of duty, or at the very least has passed away by the time the show starts. So it might relate, or it might be played in scenes where we get some of these flashbacks and, more and more of a explanation of how Tokage came to be the way he is, but also, I think, in relation to the main female lead's backstory, which involves her boyfriend before the show starts just suddenly vanishing, and she can't find him, and I think she actually searches or seeks out the Tokage as an undercover investigator to try to figure out what happened to her fiance. I think it was more than just a boyfriend. I think it's her fiance. So maybe this track is used in relation to that storyline as well. Either way, I think it's very moving, it's very subtle and sublime. So, and this soundtrack is done by Kimura Hideakira, who also does the Ouroboros soundtrack. So for those who've heard or watched my reactions to the Ouroboros soundtrack, this is a soundtrack by the same composer, but it's a very different soundtrack. It's less big and, epic, which the Ouroboros soundtrack is very epic. This soundtrack it's like the show. It's a bit smaller, it's a bit more subtle, but I think it fits very well. So let's hear it. This is a tune called Missing from the soundtrack to Undercover Agent Tokage, a show from 2013, and the soundtrack/score is composed by Kimura Hideakira. beautiful. Simple. I think that main piano riff, it's not particularly elaborate, but I think it has a very reflective, considered emotional quality to it. I forgot that the second half of it has a bit more energy. It starts with that big, I think, cello chord, and suddenly it's, dynamic, it's got a little percussion, and it's more driving. But overall, I still think even that part has a degree of emotional reflection to it. So, yeah, it's a beautiful tune, and in the moment, again, I'm not remembering exactly how it's used, though given my recollection about the storyline from the female lead, who I forget in the moment who she's played by. I don't think it says it on here. I think the only one who's given a name check on the back description on the box set is indeed Matsuda Shota, who plays Tokage. But yes, I forgot as I began the reaction about that storyline with the main female lead's fiance missing at the beginning of the story. And there is a really cool sub-story, or that storyline has a very nice trajectory, and when we eventually get some more information about it, it's a really crucial moment in the show that I think is played perfectly. So again, we'll see and talk about this when I do a watch along for it on Patreon, but for the time being, I'm going to come back and react to some more tracks from this, because again, as I said, I think it's sort of an underrated show. I've heard people talk about it who are big fans of Matsuda Shota, many of them first discovering him, as I did, as Sojiroh from F4 in Hana Yori Dango. But I think he's really good as Tokage, and it's definitely, a notably different role than Sojiroh. So it was very cool when I first watched this show. And the actress who plays the female lead, who I can't remember either her name in real life or her character name in the moment, but she's really good too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going through it in greater detail, by which I mean the soundtrack here, which again, you can see the lizard on the disc, because that's what Tokage means, and it's a show where there's a lot of undercover, meaning, he's often to get information, to infiltrate places, and to try to figure out what's happening in the given case that he's working on. Tokage will, pretend to be someone he's not, be in a uniform or a costume to let him blend in, but he's also very good at infiltration. That's another big point of the show, like, sneaking through a ventilation duct, or coming in through a window that's not meant for people to pass through. So a lot of the show is like, how is he going to get inside this place? How is he going to blend in among crowds when people might notice someone who stands out, and so on. So it's a really cool show, and as I said, I think the soundtrack is great, even if it's notably different than the other soundtrack from Kimura Hideakira that I've been going through. So in any case, enough talking. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.